Welcome to the next part of the story, where I will tell you how this story ends. I turned onto my side, hugging my pillow tightly against me, trying to push the thoughts away, but they clung to me like shadows. Was it my fault? Had I let him on without realizing it? Maybe I'd been too affectionate. Maybe I'd relied on him too much. I'd confided in him too deeply, let him be the one to fill the empty spaces in my life where love was supposed to be. I thought back to all the times he'd made me laugh when I felt like crying, all the times he'd noticed I wasn't okay when no one else did. The way, deep down, I'd always felt safe with him. But now I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe I had blurred the lines, let something happen that shouldn't have. Or worse, maybe it had always been this way. Maybe it was always going to happen, no matter what I did. The thought made my chest tighten, and I buried my face in my pillow, feeling a wave of shame crash over me. Because the worst part of all of this, the part that made me feel sick, was the tiny, quiet voice in the back of my head whispering, "You liked the attention." That thought sickened me, and yet it was true. A part of me had liked it, had liked the way he made me feel seen, had liked the way he made me feel important, noticed, and that terrified me. The guilt gnawed at my insides, tearing me apart. What was I supposed to do with these feelings? How could I face him again, knowing everything that had shifted between us? I wanted to scream, to somehow undo everything that had happened, but I knew it was too late. The tension had already been built. The line had already been crossed. There was no going back, and that terrified me even more than anything else. I woke up feeling off, like I wasn't fully in my body, as though I was watching myself go through the motions instead of actually living them. I avoided him. I stayed in my room longer than usual, took forever in the shower, and waited until I was sure he wasn't in the kitchen before I went downstairs. I needed space. I needed to breathe. But of course, he wasn't going to make that easy for me. He was waiting for me, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed, looking at me like he already knew what I was thinking. "You're avoiding me," he said, his voice casual, but there was something behind it, something expectant. I swallowed hard, forcing a weak smile. "No, I'm not. Just tired," I lied. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he just watched me, studied me. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd let it go. But then, just when I thought he would, he smirked. "You thought about it, didn't you?" My breath caught in my throat. I stared at him, my pulse thudding painfully in my ears. "What, last night? What I said?" He tilted his head slightly, his eyes locking onto mine. "You thought about it?" My whole body felt like it was on fire. No, I don't know what you're talking about." Another lie. And the way his smirk deepened told me that he knew it. "It's okay," he murmured. "I thought about it too." My stomach twisted. I should have yelled at him, told him to shut up, told him to never bring it up again. I should have walked away, but instead I just stood there, frozen. Because deep down, a part of me was terrified by how much I had thought about it too. The next few days, I tried to pretend it never happened. I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting, that he was just messing with me. But then he started making it impossible to ignore the little things, the things that felt small but weren't. Like the way he began touching me more, brushing his fingers against mine when he handed me something, letting his hand linger on my lower back when he walked past me, or the way he would look at me, his eyes dark and knowing, like he was waiting for me to admit something I wasn't ready to admit. I told myself it was all in my head, that I was imagining things, that he was still just my little brother and I was being ridiculous. But then, that night came, the night I couldn't lie to myself anymore. That was the night he didn't just cross the line. That was the night he erased it completely. The next day, everything felt different. But the worst part? He acted like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't looked me in the eyes and told me that he thought about me, like he hadn't smirked when he caught me standing there speechless, my skin burning with emotions I shouldn't have been feeling. And that was the part that scared me the most. I thought I'd wake up and things would be back to normal. I thought whatever strange, twisted moment had happened between us the night before would fade away like a bad dream. But it didn't. If anything, it felt more real now, more dangerous. And the worst part? I could tell he knew it too. It started small, so small that I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. Like the way he hugged me that morning. He had never been the overly affectionate type. Sure, we'd always been close, but hugs were usually quick, casual, comfortable. But that morning, his arms wrapped around me a little too tightly. His hand settled on the small of my back, holding me there for just a second too long. I felt his breath near my ear before he finally let go. "Morning," he said, his voice low, almost amused. I stood there, stiff, waiting for my body to catch up to my brain, waiting for my heart to stop racing. I mumbled something back, turning away quickly. I gripped the counter to steady myself, but I could feel him still looking at me, still watching, waiting, like he knew I felt it too. I didn't know what to do with all of this, with all these emotions that were too confusing to name. I was caught in a whirlwind of feelings that I didn't want but somehow couldn't push away. Every moment with him now felt loaded with unspoken tension, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend like everything was fine. I could feel the line between us eroding, and I didn't know if I was strong enough to stop it from disappearing completely. I started avoiding him after that, or at least I tried. But of course he noticed. He always did, and he didn't like it. "You've been acting weird," he said a few days later, leaning against my bedroom door frame, arms crossed, studying me like I was some kind of puzzle he was determined to solve. I kept my back to him, pretending to be busy, pretending I wasn't fully aware of him standing there, watching me. "I don't know what you mean," I muttered, forcing nonchalance into my voice. "Yeah, you do." I felt my stomach twist. "Look at me," he said. I shook my head, trying to avoid the inevitable. "I have things to do. Just look at me." His voice was gentle, but there was something beneath it, something that sent a shiver down my spine. Against my better judgment, I turned to face him. The moment I did, I knew I'd made a mistake. His eyes were on me again, that intense, knowing gaze that made it impossible to pretend anymore. The air between us felt too thick, too charged with something unspoken. "I don't get it," he said after a long silence, his eyes still locked on mine. "Why are you running from this?" I swallowed hard. From what? A slow smirk curled at the edge of his lips. From me. After that, it became a game, a silent, invisible tug of war neither of us acknowledged, but both of us played. He kept testing the limits, and I kept pretending they weren't being tested. A casual touch here, a lingering look there, innocent, but not really. Like the way he'd brush past me in the hallway, letting his fingers trail along my arm before pulling away. Or the way he'd compliment me in ways that didn't feel like something a little brother should say. That dress looks good on you. You've always had the prettiest eyes. I don't think you realize how beautiful you are. I'd tell him to stop, roll my eyes, laugh it off, pretending it wasn't affecting me. But I wasn't fooling either of us, because every time he said something, every time he looked at me like that, it got harder to breathe. One night, I was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. I thought I was alone, but then I felt him behind me. Close. Too close. I could hear his breathing, could feel the warmth of his body. His presence sent a shiver up my spine. I stayed still, my hands gripping the counter, my heart hammering in my chest. You never used to avoid me. His voice was soft, but there was something behind it, something I wasn't ready to face. I forced a laugh, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm not avoiding you. A lie, a terrible, obvious lie. He let out a quiet chuckle, stepping even closer, his chest barely an inch from my back. You sure about that? I turned around. Big mistake. Because now we were face to face, closer than we had ever been, and the way he looked at me, it was like he was waiting, like he was daring me to admit what we both already knew. For a second, just a split second, I thought he was going to kiss me. And the worst part, for that brief moment, I didn't think I would stop him. That was the moment I knew this wasn't harmless anymore. This wasn't something I could keep brushing off. I had always been able to justify it in my head. I'd told myself he was just being playful, that I was just imagining things. I convinced myself that if I ignored it, it would go away. But standing there, trapped in that moment, staring into his eyes and feeling something twist deep in my stomach, I knew the truth. I had already let it go too far, and if I didn't stop it now, I wasn't sure I ever would. That's the thing about moments like this. They don't just disappear. They linger, they fester. They pull you in deeper, even when you try to fight it. And no matter how much you tell yourself it won't happen again, deep down you know it's only a matter of time. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't stop replaying that moment over and over in my mind. My heart was still racing, my body still tense. The weight of everything that had shifted between us felt suffocating. How had we gotten here? I thought I could keep pretending. I thought I could keep telling myself that it was just him being him, that he was still just my little brother. But now, every touch, every look felt different. Every interaction seemed charged with something we couldn't ignore, and I didn't know what to do about it. The truth was, I didn't know how to stop it, and worse, a part of me didn't know if I wanted to. I didn't move. The space between us had disappeared, the air thick with something neither of us could name. His eyes were locked on mine, dark and unreadable, waiting for me to react, waiting for me to choose. And for that single heartbeat, I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt frozen, teetering on the edge of something dangerous, something that couldn't be undone. Then I shoved him away. "No," I whispered, my voice barely audible, my hands trembling where they had pushed against his chest. His eyes flickered with something. Hurt? Regret? Or was it frustration? I couldn't tell. "Score," he started, his voice soft and hesitant, but I didn't let him finish. I took a step back, then another. I needed space, needed to get away from the suffocating heat of the moment, from the weight of what almost happened. "I can't," my voice broke, my breath coming too fast, too uneven. It was too much. Everything. The past few weeks, the looks, the touches, the words that should never have been spoken, and now this. I shook my head, my chest heaving. I couldn't even look at him. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly, his voice breaking through the thick silence. "I shouldn't have..." But I didn't wait for him to finish. I turned and ran. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my body still trembling from what almost happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still feel the heat of his presence, the way his breath had brushed against my skin. I kept hearing his voice. "I don't think of you as just my sister anymore." Over and over, like a broken record. I felt sick, not just because of what he said, not just because of what almost happened, but because of the part of me, the deep, hidden, shameful part that had hesitated, that had frozen, that hadn't immediately pushed him away. I clutched the sheets, my breath shaky. I told myself that tomorrow I would pretend this never happened, that I would act like things were normal, that I could erase the moment, wipe it from existence. But deep down I knew the truth. There was no going back. I stayed in my room longer than usual. I told myself I was too tired, that I needed time, that I just needed one moment alone before I had to face him. But eventually, I had to go downstairs. I had to breathe the same air as him again. And when I finally did, it was worse than I expected. He was sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a coffee mug, his shoulders tense, his jaw set. And the second I walked in, I felt it. The shift, the unspoken thing sitting between us like a living, breathing presence. I didn't say anything, neither did he. I walked to the fridge, my hands shaking as I grabbed a bottle of water, pretending I didn't feel his eyes on me, pretending that everything wasn't ruined. The silence was suffocating. I wanted to break it, to rewind time, to want everything to go back to the way it was before, but it couldn't. It never could. For the rest of the day, we avoided each other. We passed in the hallway like strangers, like we hadn't spent years being each other's closest person, like he hadn't been my best friend. But that's what we were now, strangers, because there were some things you just couldn't come back from, and this was one of them. That night had shattered something between us. And no matter how much I wanted to put the pieces back together, some things, once broken, stay broken. I thought that after a few days, things would settle, that maybe with enough time, the tension would fade and we could go back to the way we were before, but we didn't. And deep down, I knew we never could. Because some things, once felt, can never be unfelt. Some moments can never be undone. The memories lingered, they stuck to me, haunting me in the quiet moments when I was alone, reminding me of a time when things were simpler, when we were just two people who shared everything. Now it felt like something irreparably changed, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, I couldn't escape the truth. What had been between us, what we had been, was gone. Forever. I found myself replaying every moment, every touch, every glance that should have made me stop and think. I thought about all the times he stood too close, the way his hand would linger just a second longer than necessary, the way he'd look at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, like he was seeing something he wasn't supposed to see. Had it always been there? Had he always felt this way? Or worse, had I ignored it on purpose? I kept telling myself I had done the right thing, that I had pushed him away, that I had stopped things before they could go too far. But if that was true, why did I still feel so guilty? Why did I still feel like I had let it happen? Like maybe, just maybe, I had wanted him to cross that line. The thought made me sick because I wasn't supposed to feel this way. He was my little brother, my family, but that night had exposed something raw and dark inside of me, something I didn't want to look at too closely, because if I did, I might not like what I saw. Losing him felt like losing a part of myself, and I hated that. I hated that I still felt the absence of him, that I still caught myself wanting to turn to him, to tell him things, to share jokes that only we understood. He had been my best friend, my constant, and now he felt like a ghost. Someone I could see but no longer touch, no longer talk to the way we used to. I missed him. I missed us, but I didn't know if I missed the version of us from before or the version of us that almost became something else. I told myself I just needed time, that after a while we'd figure out a way to move forward, to erase the past and pretend that night never happened. But the truth was, I wasn't sure I wanted to go back, because even now, when I saw him, when our eyes met across a room, when I felt the heavy silence between us, there was still something there, something unfinished, something we weren't saying. And the scariest part, I didn't know if I wanted it to go away. One night, I stared at myself in the mirror, searching for something, any sign that I was still me, that I hadn't changed, that I wasn't broken, but I couldn't find it. That night had left a mark, a scar, something I couldn't wash away, no matter how many times I told myself it was over. And the question that haunted me the most, the one I couldn't say out loud, was this: if he knocked on my door again, would I push him away this time? Would I run or would I stay? I didn't know if there was a way to come back from something like this. I didn't know if time would ever erase the weight of what happened, or if it would always be there, a shadow lingering in the spaces between us. Some things you can't unsee. Some lines once crossed can never be redrawn. And now I was left with the wreckage, the silence, the questions I didn't know how to answer. I kept wondering if I had done something differently, if things could have turned out another way. Would we have stayed who we were supposed to be? Or was this always bound to happen? Because I can't be the only one. I can't be the only person who stood at the edge of something forbidden, something that feels like a mistake and a temptation all at once. Have you ever felt something you weren't supposed to feel, something that shook the very foundation of what you thought you knew about yourself? Have you ever had to look at someone you loved, someone who was supposed to be safe, and realize that they weren't safe anymore? I need to know. Tell me in the comments, would you have walked away? Could you ever forget something like this? Could you forgive it? Or does this kind of betrayal leave a scar too deep to ever fade? If you've made it this far, maybe you felt something too. Maybe you understand what it's like to feel something you're not supposed to feel. Maybe you know what it's like to carry a secret you don't know how to live with. This story isn't just mine, it's ours, because human emotions are messy. Sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. If this story shook you, if it made you feel something, even for just a second, then subscribe. There are more stories like this. Stories about the hidden corners of human emotion, the things we don't talk about, the things we pretend don't happen. But they do, and maybe, just maybe, talking about them is the only way to survive them. Some things change you, not in a way you see right away, not like a scar on the skin or a wound that bleeds. No, it's deeper than that. Some things don't heal, they just settle inside you, reshaping the way you see the world, the way you see yourself. I used to believe that family was untouchable, that no matter what happened, there were certain lines that could never be crossed, that there were bonds too strong to ever break. But now, I don't know what I believe anymore, because I lost him. Not in the way you lose someone to distance or time, not in a way that can be fixed. I lost him in the moment he said those words. I lost him in the moment I realized he wasn't the person I thought he was. Or maybe, just maybe, I lost him the moment I realized I wasn't the person I thought I was either. There are wounds people can see, things you can point to and say, this is where it hurts. And then there are wounds like this, invisible, silent, but just as real. I don't know how to carry it. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at him without feeling that shift, that unspoken thing that will always be between us now. Because even though nothing truly happened, something did. Something I'll never be able to forget. And that's the thing about moments like these. They don't just pass. They become part of you, like a scar you don't want but can't erase. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't always see a betrayal coming. Sometimes it's not loud, it's not obvious, it doesn't come with flashing red lights and sirens warning you to run. No, sometimes it starts as something small, something familiar, something safe, until one day it's not. And by the time you realize you're standing on the edge of something dangerous, you're already too close. Some lines once crossed can never be redrawn. Some things once said can never be unheard. I never thought I'd lose my brother, but maybe I never really knew him at all. And the worst part, maybe I never really knew myself either. Maybe none of us do until it's too late.